Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. I'm Dean Seddon and I've got a guest with me today, Holly Hayes. Holly's been on the podcast before. Holly, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
And you've been in the world of social media for a very, very long time, still are, but you now work for, well, one of the biggest podcasting. What is it, Holly?
It's like I always describe it as a Netflix, but for podcasting. A big
Okay.
kind of, what's the word? Network, smorgasbord, that fun word, of all different types of podcasts. And I think we've got about 60 or 70, and they're mainly kind of in the US, a few in Europe, but not as many in the UK. Hopefully we'll kind of be branching out there more. But yeah.
Cool. So that's a big shift from being all in social media. But what do you do in that kind of world?
Yeah, so it will be, not only kind of my role includes social media now, it will also be very much looking at what's going on in the podcasting space. It will also be looking at YouTube as well. So seeing kind of how we're performing there, what we need to do. But it really is kind of all encompassing, and also it's very fast paced. And I think when I was at my previous employer, yes, it was fast paced, but podcasting was still a little new. Whereas now it's so, I mean, it's the industry has completely been like blown out of the water. So there's a lot to kind of keep up with and keep track of.
And before we get into the whole podcasting thing, I've got to ask you the most important question.
Yeah.
You're at the bar,
Yeah.
you've got the option of a cocktail. Which one is it?
I think that's difficult. I would say I feel like it's got to be maybe like a passion fruit martini or something.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, a classic.
So I discovered this one weirdly in Dubai that I've absolutely fell in love with. So much to this, I bought the ingredients and I have the ingredients at home, right? It is vodka, mango syrup,
Yeah.
and soda. Oh my God, it's amazing.
Do you put any fruit in it or no?
No, as you could do to decorate it, but I don't at home. I do when I have one out, but yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Delicious.
um, yeah, passion fruit martinis, very good choice. So you
Yeah.
pass the test. But
Love that.
interesting, we're recording this just after the US election.
Yeah.
You're in the whole podcasting world. Like, I feel like podcasts have swung the election this time round because, like, we're not going to go into the politics of it. We'll just talk about the pure influence of it. Like, the podcast with Joe Rogan and Donald Trump was like, I think the last time I looked was like 50 million views on YouTube in like a week or something.
Yeah.
That kind of influence is insane.
It's unbelievable. And you know what? I feel like, you know, the last kind of in America, obviously, the 4 years prior or then the 4 years before that or whatever, you'd be going to maybe Fox News or ABC News or whatever. It would be a news show. Whereas
Mm.
now it's podcasting. And I do agree with you. I think it definitely did as well. I know also he had obviously Elon Musk on, and he's got strong kind of ties to Trump and things like that. So obviously that probably again really helped in his favour. But it's also, even though when you go on a TV show, obviously it's live, it's still not live in the sense of
Mm.
you're not being
It's not
truly
real.
no. And you're still not being truly authentic because they've got the questions nicely laid out, and if you don't want to answer, you don't have to answer. And normally you get what, a few minutes, 5-10 minutes at best, and that's
Mm.
kind of it. It's just like a skim conversation without even going into the depths at all. But with a podcast, you really don't have anywhere to hide, and you can talk about things that you want to talk about. And because a lot of podcast settings feel very informal, I think probably the psychology of it as well, I don't know like for fact, but I would presume that again, you feel like you can open up and you talk about things in a more of a vulnerable way, in a more authentic way to you, versus being in a studio with big lights. There's cameras everywhere, there's people wearing headphones. It feels more production like. So
Mm.
yeah, I think it probably did. Again, it's not censoring what you want to talk about, you're just talking freely. And Joe Rogan's obviously got a very kind of loyal fan base and community base anyway. And then you plug it with a person like, you know, Trump and Elon, who have got their own strong opinions. It just creates wildfire.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'll say without going political is
Yeah.
like, how did that old guy manage to do so many podcasts in such a short space of time and not die?
I know.
Like,
I know.
I'll come off this and go, oh, I need a minute.
Yeah,
but
I
but
know.
it's just crazy. Um,
It, it's a
so
different breed.
um, just thinking about this because obviously you're working with people who are like putting themselves out there.
Yeah,
They're, podcast, it's often not edited in the way that a TV show would be edited. It's,
yeah,
it's a bit more raw. There's more likelihood that you could, say something that you
yeah.
didn't want to say. How do you, how do people get over that kind of exposure? Like, I'm sat here going, I'd love my podcast to have 12 million subscribers or whatever it is that
Yeah.
they've got. I'd love it. But what's the reality of that like? That the uncomfortableness of like having that kind of presence and visibility online?
It's hard because you're always going to be damned if you do, damned if you don't. And there's always going to be a side, not even in politics, but just in general. Maybe you might have um, a health expert on or whoever. And as soon as you say the word expert, people are like, oh my God, this must be exactly correct. And then people are like, well, where are these studies from? And then maybe they are, but maybe they are referencing legit things, which is fine. But sometimes I've seen so many comments, like just not even talking about like previous ones that I've worked for, but just ones in general where it's like, well, where's the facts? Where's the proof from what you're saying? And then you get into the kind of misinformation side of things. And when you have such a big platform, I feel like there's such a responsibility because you are talking to so many people and they trust you as well. So
Mm,
it's really important for you to actually do your checks beforehand, and a lot of them do, which is great. But then ultimately, again, when it's out there, it's for people to interpret. It's for people to say, yes, that's really worked for me, or no, that I don't know what you're talking about. That doesn't work
mm,
well at all. And it comes with a lot of backlash and a lot of times as well. And the podcast that I've worked for previously and the current one now, there's really minimal editing. There's
mm.
not really a lot of editing in terms of, cutting something out or doing whatever. It's really, really raw. And I think whilst that's amazing, like you're saying, that can feel really scary. And a lot of people don't really want to go down that route because then it's like, okay, well, anything could be interpreted from there. It's a really hard one to get the balance right.
Yeah, it's like I've had, I've done some posts, and this is not in the same scale.
Yeah.
And maybe I misjudged something, or some people didn't like what I had to
Mhm.
say. And in that kind of moment, you feel that kind of sinking feeling,
Yeah.
like, oh my God, this is going to destroy everything, blah, 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 blah. But some of those times it's like, it's just me and it's nothing and it's gone tomorrow.
Mm.
And then there's other times where something rolls on. And I've never had something significantly like roll on to become an
Mm.
actual issue. But I always think that the one that happens might be the worst career ending one. How do you like, you must have seen that in that, you work with a
Yeah.
lot of people in, big brands and stuff like that. How do they deal with that kind of, you know, hate, but also knowing when something's going wrong?
I think I've seen two different approaches completely end of the spectrum. It's either you don't say anything like nothing, and you just carry on like normal, or you address it, but then you still get hate for it. So either way, you are gonna get either way someone is gonna say something. Even if you put your hands up and let's just say, for an example, I don't know, you actually are in the wrong about something, there's gonna be a large proportion of people that are like, no, that you still feel like that, or why did you say that, or we're still upset with you. And then if you don't say anything, I've also seen it when you don't say anything and you put up a post as normal and all the comments are about the thing that you said last week. And it's a freaking nightmare because then you think, well, I'm not going to delete the comments. And I've never done that before, even previously in what I do. I don't delete them because I'm kind of like, you know, it
You're
should be,
ceding power to the situation almost, aren't you? You're
yeah,
like saying you're now controlling me.
yeah. And also as well, I'm just of the mindset, okay, yeah, I'll delete them, but then the next hour when I go on there, there'll be 20 more. Like, it's what are you going to do? I mean, you're going to get literally like, what's the thing? Like whiplash in your thumb if you're just you're just deleting everything and you're just frantically doing that. So it's a really hard one to navigate, but I think it really depends on your personality. Sometimes when you speak out about things, like I said, it can help, but also as
Mm.
well, there's a large proportion of people, and there's some people that will just be never be happy with what your response is. So you also have to deal with that as well. But I feel like the things that are kind of more cancelable, that's not even a word, but you know what I mean, are
Mm.
things that are really on the extreme. And I've only seen
Yeah.
that a few times when actually I'm kind of like, come on, how did you not think that was going to get people's backs up? Not
Mm.
saying, you know, I don't like this versus this on a trivial matter. It's something on the bigger things where I'm kind of like, of course, people are going to say something.
Do you think
And
though it's like right, just to be really provocative for a minute?
yeah,
If you look at like Andrew Tate, right,
yeah,
and we'll not dig into him because he's oh my god, right, but
yeah, also,
he's basically been a provocateur. That's his approach to building his brand and basically be a bit edgy, I guess, where he started. And then it's like a vicious circle where the edginess isn't enough anymore. And I have to go more edgy and more edgy and more edgy and more edgy to the point where he is today. He's like, oh my God, he probably does need cancelling.
yes.
but but it's like that kind of provocateur, and I've seen a couple of people do it on LinkedIn,
Mm,
eventually ends up where the stakes always have to go higher. And I think some,
yeah,
you know, there's that approach, but I also think people miss that and they look and go, well, what if I just like say I don't believe this method works, and they think they compare their me standing against a method because you've got a position and an opinion against something that Andrew Tate does, and you expect the same result. Do you know,
yeah.
like we automatically assume because I said, oh, I don't like this way, I prefer that way, it will become an international incident. So we dramatize our own situation and not look at, hang on a minute, this guy is going crazier and crazier and crazier. You're nowhere near that level.
No, and also I would say, like, would you even want that? Because yeah, okay, he's fairly well known, but fairly well known for being a what?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, fairly well known, but what's the public opinion? Like, no brands are going to touch him with a barge pole because you're not going to. So yeah, but I also think as well, it's like there's so much about virality and whatever. Okay, great. But then it's like, well, I'm of the mindset if you post something or if you jump on a trend or if you do something and it fits into the camp and it does go viral, amazing. But if you're doing something just to be viral or whatever, I just don't think it won't help your brand progress at all.
Mm,
Even with you as like even if you don't have a a product or a service and you are the product, that's not going to help either. And I just think
mm.
sometimes it feels like a very kind of cheap way of doing something, unfortunately, that's not really going to give you any return. And I just, it's
It's
a really dangerous game.
it's the it's the strategy of put a car crash on the motorway and everybody's slowing down and looking, isn't it?
Yeah,
That's basically you're saying I'm going to create a car crash because we love to look at spectacles.
yeah.
Um,
But then I would argue there's no, again, I'm not going to like mince my words here, but then I would argue there's no skill in that. You know,
no,
I could post something that's completely outrageous and outlandish. Okay, yeah, a lot of people would have an opinion, but sure, like that doesn't really, that's not, you're not doing it off of maybe, um, it's not something that I think is a skill. It's something that if you want to go to the depths of Reddit and find something and then post it and then do a reaction to it, you can, and it will probably get lots of eyes, but it's not really anything new.
no. Well, let me ask you this. I've seen a lot of videos recently on YouTube. I was watching one
Mhm.
this morning, and people are starting to spell things and pronounce things wrong in
Yeah.
videos. So I was watching a video and it said, here's a picture of a dog on Miami Beach, right? And I'm like, you're doing that on purpose, like doing deliberate mistakes on
Mhm.
purpose to get people to comment. And part of me thinks that's a really clever idea. And part of me thinks that's a really stupid idea. I don't really know what I think about it. Do you come across this? What's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, so I've done that. Okay, I'm dyslexic, so I actually have done that before.
Yeah,
When,
legitimately, right?
yeah, yeah, my God, yeah. Unfortunately, and I remember I actually did it when I started this job when I first started it in I think I first started at the end of April, kind of May, and someone from work texted me and they were like, "Oh, there's a spelling mistake in this." And I'm like, "Oh crap, okay, I've got to go back in and edit it." And then I looked at it and I thought, this has worked wonders because every single person has been commenting, being like, I can't remember what I spelled wrong. It was like, this isn't spelt right, this isn't spelt right. And I was just like, okay, thanks. Like that's actually been quite helpful. But I think, yeah, if you're gonna mispronounce again, I think those small tactics can work, but then it's like it's gotta be believable. I feel like a typo is more believable than actually verbally saying something that isn't
Yeah.
correct. Because a lot of the time, again, people are just getting something out quick, and it is probably like I did, it's really easy to have a typo. But
This was like it was spoken, and he said Miami Beach,
yeah, like where have you heard that?
Miami Beach. I was like,
Yeah,
why are you saying it like that? And the only thing I can think of, because all the comments were like, why are you saying it like that? I've never heard it said like that. But
yeah.
it prompted people to like comment and correct it. But I've seen other things like people do videos with cups on their hand and like doing really weird things to and I'm like, it feels quite clever, but I don't know how I feel about would I do it? Do you know what I
No,
mean?
I whenever there's a spelling mistake and I've spelt something, it's literally like a sinking feeling. Like it's not an
Mm.
excitable feeling. Particularly if it's, I send off the titles for the episode, for the podcast, and you best believe I'm checking those 100 times to make sure there's not a spelling error. Like it's not. I don't think it's not something that I would do willingly. I think if you're gonna do it, you could probably do it in a satire way or in an amusing way.
So I just reminded me of something. So I don't know whether you'll know this guy, but there was a comedian. He's dead now, but in the 80s and 90s, he was a
Mhm.
very big comedian, Bobby Ball. He was
Okay, I've heard of
Cannon
it.
and Ball. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've worked with Bobby Ball before he died. He'd done quite a lot of events. I'd done some events with him. And the first time I did an event, and I didn't realize this, and I'm just remembering, I've forgotten about this. So we had this big screen up, and we were saying like an evening with Bobby Ball and all this
Yeah.
kind of stuff, and the programs and everything, an evening with Bobby Ball. And then I looked at the programs and realized we'd misspelt his name. It was Booby. So it was literally an evening with Booby Ball. I was like, oh my God.
Literally the horror.
So we changed the screen, but we had to ditch all the programs because it's like that was humiliating, wasn't it?
But that would have probably gone viral online.
Yeah, in today that would go
Yeah.
viral and be like, his
Yeah,
reaction video as well would have been amazing.
exactly. That's what I mean. Like that, I think you could, if you realise something and you can put an entertaining spin on it afterwards, and it is actually, you know, a mistake that you didn't make on purpose, then it can be quite funny. But I think yeah, the whole
I
Miami,
didn't feel like it. I didn't feel like it at the time, but now looking backwards, I go, that would have been a classic content moment. It would have
that
been
would have been
fantastic.
that would have been literally like perfect, absolutely perfect.
Him coming out and seeing it, it would have been funny. Um, but it's weird, isn't it? What gets attention? Do you not think like it's so
Yeah.
strange how like we often think about social media. Maybe I'm just boring and sad, but when I go onto TikTok, I'll hear stories about stuff that's totally random that I'll be drawn into for
Mm.
ages, and I'm like, I had no plans, zero interest in this, but you've just told me about some weird fact about an ancient tribe or something that now I'm fascinated about. It's
Yeah.
so weird how we get sucked into different things on social media.
It's really odd, and I always go down the route of conspiracies, like, that will have me hooked for ages, and it's I honestly think, in a way, it's quite worrying because I feel like as humans in general and as a society, what shocks us is less and less and less, and
Mm.
that's the issue. You know, you might go down the street and see someone doing something absolutely outrageous. Okay, you just walk past it. Like, I saw someone doing something so stupid on the train the other day, and no one put their head up. No one put their head up. And you're just so, I mean, that says quite a lot about Londoners, but I just think you're in your own little bubble, and what is actually probably shocking to you or interesting to you, your compass is getting more and more and more explicit because we're shown so much.
Well, yeah, we're desensitized to a lot of stuff, and I might. It should be all right. I'm fascinated by how nuclear bombs work. Right,
Should be all right.
should be all right. So I've watched every film where there's a nuclear bomb in it. You know,
Yeah.
uh, there's I can't remember what it's called now. There's the Tom Clancy ones and all
Oh
that kind of
yeah.
stuff. And I have seen so many nuclear explosions on TV that are quite
Mm.
dramatic.
Oh, sorry.
And I now wonder if this is where it gets a bit horrific. If I saw a nuclear explosion, would I be disappointed because I've seen the
Yeah, exactly. It's
um,
like what you're sensitive to is no longer actually what it would probably be like, and particularly like when you're, like you're saying, like when you're watching like films or TV shows or whatever, you see something in such like rawest form and it's really explosive, literally, and it's really, insane or whatever, and then yeah, like you're saying, and then in real life it is always kind of, it's that thing of whatever you see online is not necessarily real, but then that really messes us up in the real world because it's kind of like your expectations feel really flat then.
yeah, yeah.
It's
And
really
I've
weird.
probably just said the most horrific example about nuclear bombs, but they might be disappointed if it's off.
You might just
I obviously don't mean the mass casualties or anything like that. No, stop digging, stop digging, stop digging.
yeah.
Um, but it does desensitize us. And I think
Yeah.
I've come across a lot of people recently where it's like, and I think this is where coming full circle podcasts come quite interesting is
Mm,
often with social media, you're not sure what's real.
yeah.
And I think when you see somebody on a podcast, there's this guy I like to listen to. He's a bit wacky, but he talks about like the pyramids and how it was an ancient civilization and all this kind of stuff. And I love that stuff. I think you know what I'm on about because,
Yeah.
yeah, he's quite wacky. I don't take everything he says as gospel, but I find him fascinating to listen to. So I'll watch podcasts where he's on. And then the other thing, so I've like, I love going down rabbit holes like that, but
Mm,
it does make you wonder what's true anymore.
yeah.
Um, but I tell you who's got my attention lately, and I've
Who?
asked him, will he come on? And he might come on. He said he wants to, but whether I can get him on, Rory Sutherland.
Oh, he's such a character.
Yeah, I
He was.
mean, I must be his like fan now because I see so much of him in my YouTube shorts and TikTok, and he's just sharing like, yeah, like counterintuitive ideas basically about marketing.
Mm,
But you know, I don't know whether you've heard the one about Disney.
I
So he
haven't.
says, like, one of the problems is, he says, governments and companies get engineers and mechanics and people like that to
Mm,
actually improve the trains. And what they think is that we have to make them faster, more efficient, fit more passengers in. But he said, what would happen if you got Disney to run the trains?
yeah, that's fair.
Disney would probably make them slower, more entertaining, and you'd look forward to going on the train.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that, and he raised a point which I think is good for us in social media because we always think that there is a way to
Mm,
get Instagram growth or a way. He mentioned after that there's multiple ways to solve a problem, but we're almost. I'm not quoting him exactly, but we're
mm,
wired to think there's only one way.
yeah.
And I was like, well, you just give me a little bit of a big thought there that's going to take a few years to unpack, probably. And it's true,
Yes.
isn't it? Like, if you look at social media, there's people absolutely nailing it,
Mm.
and they're all doing it in a slightly different way. Like, there's not like a template.
No, there's not. I can't even remember who it was, otherwise I genuinely would say, but I was I know it's a guy, but I follow him on Instagram and I saw this carousel that he put up yesterday and it was like how I grew my account to 400,000 followers, and I was swiping through this carousel and I just thought, you're there's so many factors here that are so unique to you.
Mm.
Again, it's so outlandish to give an opinion like that because people at home might be sat there and thinking, right, okay, I'll do that, I'll do that, I'll do that. And then they might not see anything. And this is my thing, like, yes, that's worked for you. But, I think actually one of the slides on the carousel was like um, engaging with other accounts that are similar to you. And yeah, sure, that's a good tactic, but that's not going to help you grow to 400K like that alone.
No,
Do you know what I mean? Like that alone.
not
I was,
unless you've got an army of people typing away and doing
yeah,
thousands of comments. And
yeah, exactly. Like it felt so weird. And I kind of was like, okay, yeah, I understand the point of the post, but then when you're stipulating things so explicitly and then you're saying, this is how I did it, it's not a one size fits all. And like I was saying, it's so specific to you. Like he might have what I like I said, I don't even remember his name, but like he might have worked with a brand, let's say, and he might have been a collaborator on their post. Okay, well that would have helped him get to 400,000 a lot quicker than it would have done without. But that necessarily wasn't in the carousel. So you can't be um like 10 other people's posts. Oh my god, that's how I got to 400K. Like it's a little bit,
yeah,
it's just a bit misleading.
but I do you not think like a lot of social media generally is just summaries,
Yes.
like that it's just summaries. That and I think this is where a lot of people get frustrated is because like you get somebody with like 10, 15 years experience at doing something, and then they go online and they go, well, I have to watch because you're a lot younger than me. They go online and maybe they're similar age to me and go, how is this like 20 something knocking it out of the park, just sharing basic advice?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I do agree with that. Like I do think that all the time. But I think also like you just reminded me and I can never pronounce his surname, but like the head of Instagram, Adam something.
Oh, Moseri or whatever his name is.
That's
Yeah.
He drives me up the wall because whenever he does a Q&A on his Instagram, and yes, I follow him, and yes, whatever, I'll go on there and I'll look at his stories or his reel, be like, okay, perfect. Like maybe there's something someone's asked a really good question and I want to know the advice to. And the questions are really good that people ask, but then he'll
Mm.
answer and he'll be like, yeah, so shareability is really important for you. He'll give all these answers that are really wishy-washy, and it's like
Yeah.
I could have Googled that.
What is shareability? Do you know what?
It,
Like, what does it mean?
well, this is
Like,
what, yeah, like that's what I mean. Like it's so subjective, but I feel like for him, he's not saying anything. You're not saying anything there that I don't already know. Like you are the head of this massive platform. How do you not have any more insights to give? And then I just got to the point. I thought I'm not even reading these Q&As anymore because I was like, I know what the answer is going to be. It's that same classic stuff of yes, hashtags do work. But that was it. Someone was like, do hashtags still work on Instagram, or would you recommend that? And he was like, yeah, hashtags are really, really good, but they're not going to help you grow hugely. They're just kind of as a good tactic, a good boost to help you kind of reach more people, but not anything significant. And he was like, you want to make sure you do a mix of generalized hashtags and specific hashtags. And I thought, well, yeah, the person the answer in the asking the question, sorry, probably already knew that.
mm,
It's
yeah,
not,
it's like here's like if they did something like here's the top things that get the most shares,
yeah,
like that would be more useful because you could look at it and go, okay, that. But it's like, it's things like post great content.
yeah,
Well, that's so subjective. I could put a picture up that I think's great, but
yeah,
how do you judge this and know what's good, what's bad, what's ugly? It's so difficult. But I guess
yeah.
just coming to social media companies in one sense for what you said,
Mm,
I think they want this quest to continue. Like,
mm, yeah,
I don't think they want people to find the answer. I know this is like quite cynical. We might be creating a conspiracy theory ourselves here,
love it.
but it's like they keep changing the platform, right? And if you once they change Instagram, you see everybody get upset about it. Why? Because then people have to rediscover how to do it again, and it gets people re-energized into it because they don't want people checking out. And if they master it, they don't need to be there.
Yeah, I think you're right, to be honest with you. It's that constant level of also like curiosity. It's like what I mean, some of the changes that I see that apps will make, I'm thinking, why? Like why would you possibly want that? Like why are you changing that? Or like why are you switching up the algorithm? But like you're saying, it keeps people on their toes. And also as well, it's kind of like just when you think something's working, they'll switch it and something else will come in, and you've completely turned your strategy upside down because it's something that was working really well a year ago isn't working on the same level. It's playing a game. And I think also when you think about it and you come back to the point of social media apps in general, it's a level of addiction and they want you to be like plastered and literally eyes like not even blinking to the phone on there all day, every day, scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. So they're going to change it up, as you're saying, because it keeps it interesting. And then you've got to spend more time on the platform working out how to even do the thing that you started off doing quite well, probably in the first place, because they've changed it.
It's like yeah, we've got a whole lot of people on the platform, really useful, but we can't let them be complacent. Let's rug pull them to get them back to square one, and then they have to work harder again because if we make it too easy, they leave.
Exactly. And it's that constant thing of like human kind of curiosity, and then and also as well the other thing is that the information that obviously that they've got on that Meta has got on the world is absolutely astounding, firstly, and which is scary another conversation, but but also as well it's like they understand us better than we understand ourselves. So
Oh no, that's
yeah. So when they're changing stuff and when they're adding things in or doing or whatever they're doing, it's probably because that, like you're saying, it keeps us on the platform for longer, or they found that that's a behavioral type that we lean in towards, or whatever, or whatever. Like TikTok literally came out a few weeks ago and actually said that across the board, this is being generalized, kind of generalistic now, but from 5 p.m. to about 11 p.m., regardless of what time zone you're in, that is kind of the sweet spot for posting typically on TikTok, typically. And again, it's like, okay, well, they've got all that data because everyone's sat scrolling away. Okay, well, that's why that a lot of people are kind of reporting that they're seeing more videos in their For You page pop up then because they want you to stay on the platform longer. You kind of see content, like I know if I used to go on my TikTok at 9 a.m. versus 10 p.m., I'm going to see completely different types of content. At the 10 p.m., it's probably going to be more shocking. It's probably going to be more, like I said, like conspiracy based or kind of a little bit more intense and dark versus at the start of the day because they know in the evening, well, I'm just going to keep scrolling for ages because that's the peak time to be on.
yeah. So Holly, I want your reaction to some stats that came out yesterday, day
Okay.
before yesterday. I don't know whether you saw these on social media today. So they did a survey, Pew Research, respected research place.
Mhm.
68% of 18 to 29-year-olds said they were on Facebook.
Really?
Yeah, and I was like, what? And the same group of people, 59% of 18 to 29-year-olds said they were on TikTok. That doesn't compute to me.
No, not at all.
So
Not the
I was like,
first.
so I was like, did Facebook pay for this?
Well, I know they're having a rebrand, so they're trying to get younger consumers in,
Yeah.
but that doesn't sound.
But it's Pew Research, so they're not like some, random. They're pretty solid. But then
Mm.
the same group, 18 to 29-year-olds, 93% of them are on YouTube.
That I can believe.
Yeah. So YouTube, basically, if you go by this data, YouTube is in terms of obviously individuals, what percentage of those individuals use what channels? So
Mhm.
some people will use multiple channels. It was YouTube, Facebook, and then Instagram. And poor old LinkedIn and TikTok were kind of neck and neck at, I think TikTok was 32% and LinkedIn was 31%.
I just don't believe that TikTok is that low.
It's weird, isn't it? Because you would think it was more, but I don't know the usage stats, but it's
Wow.
something like it's something like 160 million or 116 million users of TikTok in the US. So it's
Yeah,
if you look at that and you go, oh, well, LinkedIn's got 200 and something million users in the US. Like, I wonder, but I was like, I need to dig into this. This is strange.
that's really odd. Like the YouTube doesn't surprise me as much because that's it, that algorithm is very much kind of set up and hooked up for. I mean, you finish the end of a video and it's already playing the next one. Like it's kind of conditioned you, and a lot of kids obviously on watching the iPad or like on their phones, whatever. That doesn't shock me as much, but yeah, the Facebook one really shocks me.
I'll send you the link because it's
Yeah,
like it's fascinating to look at, and they break it down by income, age, political persuasion, everything. And I was like, this is weird.
that is really, really. Is that across like the world?
It's only the US.
US.
It's only
Oh,
the US.
wow.
But but I would imagine the UK is probably very similar. I don't know about Europe and other territories, but
Yeah.
I would imagine like in Asia, TikTok would probably be more dominant, as would be Instagram. But yeah, it's strange.
The only thing that I mean, I'm going to ask people at work now because obviously an American company, see what if they're using it. But the only thing that I can think of with Facebook is that I know again, if you have relatives on there, for a lot of people, that's kind of one of the only ways that they can communicate with other people. But that
Yeah,
is the only thing that I can think of.
yeah. There is, and this is me showing my age now. Josh in the office. He's 22. and he plays something or other. I'm not sure what it is.
Mhm.
And he has to have a Facebook account to do it.
Well, yeah.
So it might be that, might be Facebook going, hang on a bit, how do we acquire this age range by linking it into some games or something?
And also on that point, I've just thought of something from what you've just said. Social scheduling tools like Brandwatch. I have a Facebook account, but I don't use Facebook. I had to set up a Facebook account to be able to use Brandwatch,
Ah,
even
might
though
be
I
that.
can't even remember the password to it, so definitely don't use it. I just had to set one up.
It might be that. You never
So
know.
interesting. I'll have a read of that.
Yeah, I'll send you the link because it's not a big report, but it was like, I was surprised by it.
Yeah, that is shocking. Really shocking.
Mm. Awesome. Holly, thank you for coming on.
For having
Always
me.
pleasure to have you. Always good to hear what you've got to share and ideas. Um, best place to find you, LinkedIn.
LinkedIn or honestly Instagram. So it's just Holly and then initial FL and then Hayes. Yeah,
I'll
that's
I'll put your handle in the description of the video as well so they can find
okay,
you.
perfect. But thanks, Gina.
Awesome.
I enjoyed it.
Thank you, Holly, and hopefully I haven't ended my career with the nuclear bombs.
No, fingers crossed. No one cancel
Yeah,
Dean.
yeah. Awesome. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you next time.
Bye, bye.